Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the As Far As We Know podcast. My name is Sarah Burton, if you don't know, and my co-host is Toulouse, which she's somewhere around here. I don't know. But I wanted to apologize because I lied to you twice. I said that I would be doing a podcast next week, which was last week, and I didn't. And then also I said that it would be about something else that I'm actually not talking about for the next podcast, if that makes sense. Anyway, next week, hopefully, we'll be talking about a subject that's more difficult to talk about, that everyone deals with. But this week, I want to do something a little bit lighter because I don't have a lot of a brain to use this week. Anyway, I want to talk about a time that I rescued a cat from a storm drain with a few of my wonderful friends. And if I have time, I'll tell you another story of how I saved more animals, because I think this is really, it's just so much fun to talk about, because saving animals is so feels like a movie whenever I'm doing it. Anyway, whenever I'm doing it, the 2 times I have. So I'm going to try to explain what this whole situation looked like so you can visualize this with me. Because if I just say, hey, I saved a cat from a storm drain, that's the story. It doesn't make sense. So I was at work, and this is where this happened. And my building that I work in has 2 squares. So I want you to imagine a square on a piece of paper. And the top part of the square is where a parking lot is. On the outside of the square is where a parking lot is. Then on the right side of the square, on the outside of it, is a sidewalk. And then there's another square, which is another building. So there's a sidewalk in between both squares. And then on the bottom part of the square is another parking lot. And then on the left part of the square, on the outside, is a road that leads to both parking lots. And there's a fence on the other side of the road. So it's just a little road. But along this road, there's a bunch of storm drains. And usually me and my friends at work take 2 walks a day just to keep the blood flowing, the brain working. And we started our walk. It was right before a big storm was going to come. And it's not just a rainstorm. It was ice rainstorm, below freezing type temperature. So it was a little scary. But we ended up walking around and heard nothing. Then the second time we were walking around, we were headed from the right side of the building to the left side of the building. So that this is really hard for me to explain. Imagine this square that I just explained to you before. The top right corner is where we're starting, and we're walking around to the left, which would be this way for you, and just walking around that way, which I don't know which clockwise that is. I'm having a hard time describing. Anyway, we're on the road that's in between the building and the fence. So the one that's connecting the 2 parking lots, and we're walking down, and we hear, the second time around, we hear a meow, but we're 100 feet away from this storm drain that we were okay, maybe that was just a noise creaking from the fence because it does that. But then we heard it again, and I was like, that is a cat. And so at this point, we don't know it's in the storm drain. So we're just where is this thing? So we start walking closer and making noises, and it hears us, and it starts meowing really loud and just oh my gosh, someone heard. So we get over there. It's freezing. I have my jacket, my scarf on, my earmuffs, everything. Okay. I see this cat, but the storm drain is probably 3 feet to 4 feet down. And this cat, I can't see it. So the storm drain, you have pavement, and then there's probably a half a foot gap is where the water goes in. And storm drains are, if you don't know what they are, they're really big drains. So if it rains really hard, the water doesn't get clogged in a sewer grate. It just flows down. So there's no flooding. And we have a bunch of them by our building just because it rains a lot. And it doesn't rain a lot, but when it rains, it usually rains a lot. So I'm I can't see this thing. I hear it, and then I see it. And it's this medium-sized little orange guy. And he looks so cute. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I saw this cat. So then I'm like, take my scarf off. I'm like, this thing's a lost cause. I don't care. I'm like reaching it down, trying to see if he'll climb up. He's not climbing up. And as you guys know, I have a cat. So I'm like, what would a cat do? And one of my friends said, Sarah, you should just reach your arm down. And, you know, I thought it was funny because I think she was joking. But then not very realistically, I decided, you know what, I'm going to do it. Because if I can get him to get close to my hand, and if he's friendly, which I was hoping, because otherwise I would have scratches all over my hand, which I was fine with. I've been there. If he rubs his head on me, then I can grab his neck, right? Where like you can pull a cat up and they're fine. And so I'm doing that, like, I can't see anything. So my arm is like reached down in this thing, this dark abyss. I can't see anything. I just am feeling this like rock. And then I feel him rub his face and he's purring. And so I'm like, this is good news. So then I wait until I grab his neck. And so I grab his neck, pull this guy out. I'm just holding this guy. I wrap him in my scarf because I'm like, okay, well, what do I do now? Because I'm at work right now. This is middle of day, right before lunch. So I'm like, I have no idea what to do. And it's a busy week because a lot of people are there from different places around the world. So it's like busy at work. So I can't just leave. But then I ended up leaving. And I took like an hour to try and find this cat a place to go. And so my friend came with me, and this sweet boy was so lovey. And we drove around, couldn't find a place that could take him in time, which that usually happens because they're like, okay, well, is he spayed? Is he not? And at this point, I didn't check his gender. I'm guessing, okay? Because his face looked like a boy face. Like he's got the huge paws, big face. Just looks different. Anyway, I then am driving around with my friend trying to find stuff. I realize it's too late. I can't take this guy anywhere except my own place. Which the issue here is Toulouse hates cats. And you might be thinking, Sarah, that's a lot for a cat to hate a cat. No, she like has such behavioral issues. She like hisses and is like trying to see the cat and just like wants to kill it. And then if she can't, she goes like somewhere will like poop in a corner. And she just has such behavioral issues. And I've tried. She just doesn't like cats. So I brought this cat and it's just staying in my bathroom. I have no idea if this cat has anything. It's staying in my bathroom. And then I called this place and the next day got someone to come get the cat. And I tried. I thought it might work with this cat because it's a boy cat and not a girl cat. And then I realized it's not going to work because the next morning I woke up and there's poop in the corner of the living room. So I was like, this is not going to work. Anyway, someone comes to pick up a cat and that's what happened basically, which is, I know it's short, but in the midst of it, it was crazy. Like having to think that hard about what to do next. You're just like, bam, bam, because you don't expect it. Usually I like to go about my day and expect what's going to happen. But when stuff like that's really unexpected happens, it's just crazy. And it's hard not to forget. So that was the first story. And I thought it was going to take longer. But here's the second story, which this one's a little more intense. So maybe I should have started with this one. But it's a story about how my mom and I saved 3 little puppies. And my mom lives on a lake and is like an hour and a half from where I am. So I get to go visit her sometimes, which is really nice. But we went to like this small little town to watch this movie at this theater that's by her. And I think it was the Christmas pageant one. And so we're coming back and it's like 10 p.m. So we're driving, and I see something. I think, is that a coyote? And then I like asked my mom to kind of turn the car so it's her lights, and I'm pointing. I'm like, what is that? I realize it's a dog, like a puppy. And then I see in the corner there's a trash bag that they're just like hovering around. So I think someone dropped them in a trash bag, which is horrible. If you're a person that does that, there's always another way. There's always another way. You can do something else. You can drop them off at a place. Anyway. So then we're like, oh my gosh, what do we do? And so then I instinctively is like, Mom, stop the car, turn on your hazards. Let's try to get these dogs. So these are 3 puppies. We have no idea their demeanor, why they're like anything. We have nothing. So if you don't know me, I love animals, and I worked with dogs for like 3 years in daycare and boarding and such and training. And I worked with reactive dogs. So all the dogs that no one wants at their facility because they're can be a little crazy or they are like a certain breed. And so I know a lot of what to do, but I don't know everything of what to do. So I'm like, okay, I have to get these dogs. So I'm like, we just picked up groceries before the movie. It's like middle of winter, so the groceries are fine. They're just like, it's like a freezer outside. Anyway, then I'm like, oh my gosh, we got a pizza. So I'm like, Mom, take the meat off the pizza so we can get these dogs. And she also loves animals. That's why I'm the way I am. So she's like, okay, totally on board. We try to get these dogs, and I'm like, I think the longer we try to do this, it's going to just get worse. So I'm like, we just need to get these dogs. So I grab one, put it in the car. It's fine. Grab the second one, put it in the car. It was a little bit harder to get in there. Not like he was growling, but it was just harder to get in there. Third one, oh my gosh. I think after we took the 2 and put it in the car, he was like scared. And so then he hid under the car. I'm like, man, we're in the middle of the road. It's like midnight. Someone could come whipping around this bend and like hit us. And I'm like, this is the worst spot to be in. My mom knows it. She's panicking because a lot is happening. It's like your adrenaline is rushing. It's freezing outside, obviously. And so this third puppy is under the car. The other 2 are in the car. So it's like scared. And so then I'm like, okay, I can't reach my hand in there. He'll probably bite me, and I don't want him to bite me. I don't know if he has rabies or anything. So I'm like throwing meat to see if I can coax him out. And then I'm like, I don't think he's going to come out. At this point, I'm like, I don't care if he bites me. I just want to get him out. But then my mom reaches under, tries to grab this dog. He like bites her out of fear and like clips her whole hand. And it's like not deep bites, but a good chunk. And so I'm like, Mom, we have to I wanted to keep going, but she was like, we just had to leave the dog because this dog like ran out into the bushes and we couldn't get him anymore. And so I was like, there's no way to get this dog. At this point, he wasn't under the car. He ran off. And so I was trying to get him, but he ran away after he bit my mom. And so we get in the car. I look at my mom's hand. I'm like, man, she's probably gonna have to get a tetanus shot and go to the emergency room. So then we, get back home, get these puppies in like a crate, and we're like, oh my gosh. And so then we're like, we have to go back and get this dog tomorrow. I had to leave the next day, so I couldn't. But my stepdad, after they took my mom to the urgent care to get her like taken care of and everything. She's there and they drive past and they didn't see the dog or anything. And so they were going to try to see him on the way back. But while they're at the emergency room, nothing happened. But she did realize that she didn't have her wedding ring on. So she was like, okay, when was the last time I saw it and stuff? And so she was looking back at pictures. She didn't see it. So then I was like, it probably came off when she got bit. And so they ended up going on the way back. They found the dog, which was crazy. And at this point, I gave them the slip lead so they could catch this dog. They caught the dog, which it was a miracle. I think the dog stayed around because it was the area that like he knew. But anyway, they looked no, I don't think this is when they looked for it. Anyway, they went back, brought the third dog in, put it in the kennel with the other two. We're trying to figure out where to put these dogs. Then my stepdad and my brother went back to look for my mom's wedding ring. They had a metal detector, couldn't find it. And they're about to get in the car, give up. And then my stepdad sees like a ring, but it was like so dusty and it just looked like a bolt or like a nut. And you couldn't really tell that it was an actual ring. And so he walked over and it was it. But it was missing like a bunch of diamonds. It was like crushed just because it probably got ran over so many times. But the fact that they got the dog and the ring is crazy to me. God is really on our side. Anyway, then they get back. We're trying to figure out what to do with the dogs. And the lady down the road took one of them. Then the lady down the road's sister took another one. And then a lady up the road took another one. So we still get to see one of them often. But then the other one we get to see every now and then. All three of them we get to see. But one of them's just like every day because he lives right down the road. And that's where my mom walks her dogs. But anyway, that is what happened. And I know told it pretty fast, but it's crazy. Those situations are so crazy. And if you know how intense it gets. But I guess I think it's really, if you're an animal person, I know not everyone's an animal person, and it's really hard to be for some people because animals are animals. But I think it's so important to have a slip lead in your car for saving dogs. And you can just order them online. They're not that expensive. They're like $5. That having like a thing of like Spam in your car or like a blanket, just things that like you could save an animal if you need, like a crate, stuff like that. Just starting off small like that, I think can help save so many animals, especially if you're like out in the country and stuff like that, because people just drop dogs randomly, which is bonkers crazy to me. I guess I get it, but I don't. It really doesn't make sense. But yeah, those are my 2 crazy stories, which I know this wasn't it wasn't as fun as the other ones, in my opinion. But I didn't really have the mentality to dig into something a little bit deeper. But I wanted you guys to know these stories because I think it's just really important to be prepared for the unpreparedness that you can have. Be prepared for the unexpected. Those are the words. Anyway, you might be thinking, Sarah, how could Toulouse have 3 questions after all of these stories? And by my surprise, she does. Here are her 3 questions to take away with you. How can you be more prepared for future happenings? Whether this is and this is usually like unexpected things. So things like finding a dog, or you get sick in your car. What do? Do you throw up out the window? You throw up in your car? So how do you be prepared for those things? Just thinking, using the noggin. Or a zombie apocalypse. One of those. All of those are so little. Anyway, second thing is, what is a surprise situation you have found yourself in recently? Like saving a cat, throwing up out the window, zombie apocalypse. One of those, or a different one. There's so many different surprises we have in our life. And then third one, she just wants to know how your week's been so far. I know it's been, depending on when you're listening to this, if it's like fresh and it's Tuesday, it's not been long. But if it's like Sunday, Saturday, it's been a long week. She just wants to know. So just let us know. Whether that's in the comments, on Instagram, or on Spotify, or Apple. I don't know all of them. But yeah, thank you for listening to me tell this story. And one thing I know is when I tell stories, they're a little bit all over. But I thank you for bearing with me. And I hope to get better at that. But I hope you have a great week, whatever that week looks like, whenever that is in the week. And we'll see you next week, wherever Toulouse is. Well, I guess that's just me. I'll see you next week. Bye.